Thank you, and once again, thank you very much, Talking Galleries people, for inviting us and to arranging such a fantastic panel.
A big panel.
A big panel. Size is important in this case, but mid-size. Your panel's over, Adam. You've got to stop. What I want to do first is someone's got to show some graphs and charts and numbers. No one's done it. It's going to be me, and I think it's going to be interesting because it is quite a provocative title. What they said, this the idea of collaborations. A lot of people have said, like, what are they? I think a lot of it is somewhat what we're going to be doing today is really trying to really talk blue sky in a way. Things that are happening now, which are collaboratory between the parties, and what could be happening in the future as well as sort of looking at reality and what the situation is and what it has been. We're incredibly lucky, and not lucky because Talking Galleries sort of did this on purpose in a way. Every one of our panel members has been on both sides of the, I'm not going to call it a fence, but both sides of the game in some way, from both an auction perspective as well as a gallery's perspective. So and at very high levels as well, which I'll tell you about in a second. So we have the great benefit of having a huge amount of experience from both the auction sector as well as the gallery sector, and talking about what's going on the ground as well. So we're very, very fortunate. So I'm just going to introduce them very quickly, just in terms of the dualities of what they're up to. First, I'll start with our sole female panelist, Susan Dunne, who is president of Pace Gallery and has been involved in other panels as well by name. And she's president, as I said, of Pace Gallery, but is also formerly vice president of Christie's and head of a contemporary art department as well. So fantastic experience on both ends of the spectrum. Martin Klosterfelde, who's here, is a senior director and senior specialist of contemporary art department at Sotheby's in London. Before that, he's had much gallery experience, firstly at Barbara Gladstone in New York, ran his own gallery for 17 years or more in Berlin, and a half years, but who's counting? And as well was director of international specialists at Philips as well. So absolutely fantastic experience on both sides of the coin as well. And then we have François Chantala, who's a director and partner at Thomas Dane Gallery and was formerly at Christie's as well in the contemporary department in London. So absolutely
Not
fantastic.
as a president.
Not as president. one day you will be there.
More importantly, you met your wife there.
And last but not least, we have Simon de Pury, who is, well, Simon de Pury. We say more. At the moment, what his involvement is now is de Pury and de Pury, which is art advisory, curatorial service, and also doing some auctions and all kinds of things together. But as you may know, he was former chairman at Sotheby's, and as well as an auction house called Phillips de Pury. It's a coincidence it was called the same name as you. So huge wealth of experience. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to contextualize what we're going to talk about. I think it's interesting to see a lot of what's the relationship between the auction houses and galleries comes from what's happening in the market. And what are the particular tensions, or what's happening, and what the necessity is for collaboration as well. So there's been some incredibly, big things that are happening in the market now, and I think it's good to sort of see that quickly, so we can sort of see what we're talking about. So these numbers are courtesy of Claire McAndrew and Arts Economics, and they are from her new report is due to come in March. So this is from 2015. Size of the global fine art and decorative market, 63.8 billion. 150% growth since 2013. The art market has been growing hugely in the past 10 years, the past 15 years. The big news is that there was a 7% fall from the highest 2014 mark this last year. And that sent a lot of shockwaves through what's been happening in the art world as well. What's happening, is it collapsing? It's just always been on this trajectory of up, and all of a sudden there's this dip. And that's caused a lot of things going to be interesting happening. In terms of the split between dealer and gallery, in 2011, it was about 50-50. And this is all from the results of surveys that Claire does of all galleries internationally. In terms of the auction sales ratio of auction sales and dealer sales. And you'll be pleased to know in 2015 it's been steadily rising on the dealer side. So 10 years from now will be 100% and there'll be no auction houses potentially. We'll see. But that's just an interesting result as well. This is a scary graph. What's interesting about this graph is, as you can see, just the huge growth since 2000 of the art market generally. This is the auction market, Sotheby's and Christie's, which dominate the auction market. That dip in 2009 wasn't a very good year, but what was amazing and what people do really comment on all the time is the resilience and the speed with which the art market recovered from the financial crisis, and almost up to the record levels within 1 year of things happening. And that was all fine and everything was going well until, as you see, the final 2015, there's been a dip. So there's gasp horror in the auction world and in the art world in some way. What's been happening, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but as you can see, the contemporary market is a lot to do with what the drop is. The auction sales fell by 14% in post-war contemporary, and I think in 2016 you will see even more than that. This is from 2015. 20% drop in number of transactions, and that's the key. There's been less supply at auction. Why that is, there's lots of reasons. A lot of it is because there's intense competition for consignments between the auction houses. Guarantees have kind of slowed down because they become risky and expensive, which means that people aren't putting their big pieces up for auction as much as they were before. And Chinese sales have fallen as well, 23%. So that's been felt in the art market as well. And that's for various reasons, not necessarily all bad, but there's changes in the market, there's the economy and Chinese economy, but also there's a lot of measures to stop corruption, which is a good thing. So that's basically what's been happening. What are the responses from the auction houses and what are the effects on the auction house? Been very interesting. There's a lot of expansion of collector services in the auction houses, which is causing, for the gallery scene, some concerns and some tensions, as you might say. Private treaty sales are rising to almost like 20% or more some years in terms of the percentage of the sales of the auction houses. So it's not just the auctions they're relying on, which has always been the remit of galleries and dealers. So we'll have to talk about whether that's a collaboration or that's a difficult thing. Art advisory services, especially Sotheby's sort of acquiring art advisory services, who are actually advising clients not just within the auction house, but across the whole market, which is a very interesting new development as well. And selling exhibitions and spaces. The S2 gallery from Sotheby's, Christie's has similar. Moving into the territory, which has been traditionally from basically gallery, dealer side. And most particularly and recently, a really move towards management services for artists and artist estates. And that's what I'm going to talk particularly about that in our discussion, because that's quite a big thing. And that's a very new role for the auction houses in some way to be taking on. Other effects, in a way, of this sort of issues about the auction world is a lot of migration of expertise. So a lot of auction house staff have been, with a lot of collector ties and a lot of experience, have been moving into the gallery and art advisory worlds. And we'll talk about sort of what effects that have as well. Some of these people here have moved as well. And just generally, I mean, this is something we should get out. I mean, yes, it's a great idea to talk about collaborations, but the elephant in the room, in a way, is that there's been a really historic tension between auction houses and galleries, and that's because of different priorities, really, that they have. The galleries are very much custodians of the artist careers and markets, and when they lose control, like when things go to auction, similar to we were talking about yesterday, the Adrian Genny issue, it's a tricky situation when auctions don't have the same priorities as galleries do in terms of their relationship to the artist and to their market and career. So there's a mix match of that as well in terms of who's stakeholders in the career. Also, in terms of the advantages the auctions have, they're big and they're international, and they also have incredibly close international ties with collectors everywhere and data. And that's something that's not easy for a gallery to compete with sometimes in terms of the relationship. So finally, where does that leave us? I think it was very interesting that Claire McAndrew's report last year talked quite a lot about asking galleries what their biggest challenges were, what they thought their biggest challenges to come were. And it came up with this graph. And I think significantly, of the top three, number 3 was competing with auction houses, was one of the gallery's top concerns. And I think that's something I want to talk about, because the word competing isn't what we're supposed to be talking about today, but it's underlying a lot of what discussion we will have. So to begin with, I think I would really like to ask our panel members what their view. Can you still hear me as I'm walking away? Yes, the magic of microphones. What your view on that statistic is? Do you really feel that is a big challenge for galleries? The competition with auction houses, is that a fundamental issue? Martin, do you want to?
I mean, I have a fairly untypical view on this, most likely because I used to be a gallerist representing young artists, and then had quite a radical shift from closing my gallery and starting to work for Philips, and have recently moved to Sotheby's about 6 months ago. I do understand the fears, and I do understand the concerns, and I do understand that I found myself very often talking about things finds very easy, quite often, solutions. Because the fear is there, and the mechanisms are there, and some things have probably changed in the more recent years. I remember when I started going to auctions was in the early 90s, and you could hardly find an artwork that was younger than 10 years, if at all. We talked about that a couple of years ago, and then it shifted more and more towards the emerging artists. And I think right now the shift is going away from that again. And that was one of the things that I set as a goal to myself when I joined Philips at the time, because I understand what problems can arise from that. But I have found in my role as an auctioneer and working for an auction house, I have incredibly constructive conversations with gallerists, with dealers, and if there are concerns and we talk about them, we usually find solutions that work for both the auction house and the galleries or the representing dealers.
Right, Susan, do you think that competition?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'll start out by saying, I was actually very happy to have started at an auction house. I didn't plan it this way, to go from auction to gallery. But in hindsight, I'm happy it worked out that way, because auction gives you an incredible overview of a certain market, which is the resale market. And when we look at these figures, which are behind me, and I can't see them, but so I'm going on what you were saying, these are auction figures. Auctions and people who make these tallies have no access to what actually happens in a gallery. They have no access to gallery figures, so these are a bit skewed, I have to say. And it is cyclical. We are very competitive, obviously, with auction houses for material, but at a time when these figures go down, the figures go up in a private gallery, because people don't want the exposure necessarily of auction. They want to sell something privately. So when things started going, south in the auction market last year, we all of a sudden had Rothkos for resale, which we hadn't had. Or we also, it's very competitive at the high level, but both places have two different missions. I mean, a gallery's mission is and galleries have different missions. So we talked about the mid-sized gallery. The gallery that I work for is a gallery for internationally established artists when they join the gallery. It's sort of a management system for people who already have international fame, are in museum collections worldwide. I know nothing about emerging careers. It's an entirely different set of circumstances. But a gallery, any gallery, is about stabilizing a market, making a market and keeping it stable so that an artist can grow in a healthy fashion. The auction mission is that sale. And if they make a mistake or guarantee something for $18 million, it doesn't work out, they end up, at 13 million, they're out, that margin, they think, okay, we won't do it next time. We don't do that. And it can be incredibly damaging to a market. So they're two different businesses. And when I started at Christie's, the head of the contemporary department used to say, dealers are your enemy. I wanted to call dealer friends and say, what were the prices in the last show? And we were forbidden from doing that. Now there's much more of a dialogue, as Martin says.
Right.
And, one sees shows and knows the asking prices, but you don't really know, what things sold for. And so an auction can skew an artist market. So it's competitive to get material, and I think ultimately there are two different missions.
Okay. François?
No, completely. I mean, competing is a bit of a kind of it's a bit difficult to talk about competing between auction houses and galleries because we do such different things, and yet at some levels, when I'm handling a resale or secondary market group of works, we are in competition, but it's that sense of omniscience of the auction house that they can or they should do everything because they have to answer to their board or their group of investors to gain market share is in essence what's the most frustrating or the most kind of unrealistic endeavor of all, because every attempt to penetrate the private market is or has, or I suspect will fail. This is, I really strongly believe that people do what they do and they're good at what they do, but we have to maintain a certain kind of distance. Collaboration is another word. It's a very beautiful word, but the extent of collaborating with auction houses, as I know it, is very often a phone call day before the sale, if I'm lucky, with a very anxious person there saying,
we have nobody interested in your artist.
So just
that would be me on the phone.
No.
Exactly.
And every time I say, call me. You have my number. It seems you have my number. Just call me a few weeks ago, and let's talk about it, because you obviously been very very keen to get that artwork to sell in your auction. You made a mistake in overpricing it, just because someone has taken you on for a ride, either for motives that are purely speculative or just personal. I don't care, but just that's the extent of a collaboration. If that's the collaboration, that's it's a little bit submissive on my part.
Okay. Simone, what say you?
So, Jeffrey, I know you said you wanted a panel with blood on the floor.
Yeah, here we go.
We can wait a few minutes.
Lots of disagreements and differing opinions. So I don't want to disappoint you too much on that front. But I feel whether we are dealers, gallerists, curators, art advisors, auctioneers, whatever angle we come from, we have one thing in common. We're all passionate about art. We love art, and we all have a responsibility towards the art that is entrusted to us on a temporary basis, whether we are, again, in any of those capacities. And so ultimately, we all pursue the same goal. And that's why I think we have many more things which unify us than things that divide us. So I'm a strong feeling that for a good market, you got to have a strong galleries, strong dealers, and strong auctions. It's not one or the others, because when you're a dealer and you sell something privately, the only way you can justify the price you're asking for it is by referring to similar works that have been sold on the public market. And equally, if you do an auction, if you don't have the whole dealing community who participates, you can't have a proper auction. So there is constantly this need of each other, but it's of course more interesting for everybody if you say it's very antagonistic. And of course it is competitive, but life is competitive. It's all competitive. But again, I feel we have much more in common, much more common interests than things that divide us.
Okay, there's no blood there at all. No. It's very disappointing.
I know.
Well, I can disagree with that.
Please do.
I mean, we don't look to auction to price artists' work. We're making a market, creating it. So it's not, we don't look at the auction prices and say, oh, we'll do this. With Genny, yesterday when Tadeus was speaking, we represent Genny. We actually brought Tadeus in on that because we wanted European representation for him, and Tadeus has done an amazing job. But we're looking at a show opening tomorrow in New York, and the auction prices, as he said, have gone up to $3 million, $10 million, and there are a lot of speculators in the market. We're not pricing the new works, even at $1 million. We're keeping them, we're building stability for an artist. So they're two different things.
But you can't avoid it. Sorry.
Wait, you can avoid it. You can select who you sell to and bring things up. And
but you see, there is a huge hypocrisy in the whole thing, because now you're getting it.
Yeah. Now you go.
Now
you're getting what you want.
Now we're
what
shaking.
you wanted. But there's this thing of placing the works. with real, true collectors, with true motives, clean motives, noble motives, and not sell it to dirty speculators. So you choose the people that you sell to, and the next thing they do is they come to you and said, what can I sell it for? How much more can I get for it? So it's just, you see, when you collect, and I happen to be a collector as well,
I think we all
and
do.
you say, I'm a dealer, I'm an auctioneer, people are worried to sell to you. So, oh my God, an auctioneer, that's terrible to sell to an auctioneer. But you are happier to sell sometimes to somebody who says, I'm doing a museum, I'm doing this, and then sure enough, and Gainier is a perfect example, suddenly you see that there's strong demand for that work. That person who bought something for a museum that he was going to do, well, it takes him less than 12 months to put it on the market, where it makes then a big price. And for people who are snubbed by the galleries, people who are poo-pooed because there's such big waiting lists, the only way they can get something is at auction, because nobody is going to intimidate them saying, oh my God, you sold, you're a villain, you're going to be blacklisted, you're awful. You can just, whoever happens to pay the highest price is going to get it. And that's a wonderful system.
It is a
It's
wonderful
It is,
very
but a
democratic
price is a
system.
price.
It is a wonderful system.
François,
It is a wonderful system as long as everybody kind of maintain a certain level of calm and connoisseurship, and every single person who's got work that is comparable in many ways or others to another one that sold for 5 million thinks his work is worth 5 million, because two guys is often two guys. I've decided that they really want that piece because that other guy really wants it, and this other guy really wants it because that guy wants it, and then the price goes insane. And then I have an artist calling, not, it doesn't work like that, but they say, how come my work is $100,000 in a gallery where it's sold for 5 million yesterday in an auction? Of course, I understand why. And the beauty of this is that, as you said, someone who has to wait, someone who makes millions every day, doesn't understand why, if they can buy something, if they have the means and the ways of buying something, they're not allowed to buy it. Well, it's the beauty of what we do.
But that's a price. I want to point out that's a price, not a market.
Yes.
You see, when you have a good collaboration, and here we come to the title of this panel, between galleries and auction houses, that's when you work for the interest of the artist at the end of the day. Because when you have a concerted effort for an artist to have a good primary market, but to have a good secondary market, that's what helps the career of an artist. I can fully sympathize with the problem it causes, not just for the gallery, but most of all for the artist.
When they're young.
When suddenly it goes from zero to huge price, because then how do you maintain that? It's very, very tough to maintain that level. We have some examples of artists where it did happen and where they stayed at that level, not only, and then it continued. But normally you prefer a gradual climbing of the prices as something.
Can I break in though? And I think what's interesting is that's going to happen, and that you're right, because there's no supply, the price is going to go up at auction. It's left the galleries with a dilemma. What do you do? And the artist maybe is pressuring the gallery to say, well, look, it made 7 million. Why aren't you charging 7 million on the primary market? What's this gallery strategy to combat that?
Artists don't
deal
like
with
that when it happens at auction.
Right.
I called Bob Ryman the night after his painting made $10 million at Sotheby's, and he just said, I said, you're not going to like this. And he just said, oh, no, now they're going to come out of the woodwork. People are going to start. Yeah. And artists don't want that. They really don't. They look for stability. They want museum shows. They want to be in public collections. They're not excited by something selling for $20 million at auction. It disrupts their...
So Martin, in terms of an auction house perspective, how does that come into your thinking? Or are you just happy for it to make 3 zillion as much as it can? Or how does that work?
No, answer carefully.
Let me see.
We're listening.
Well, we do take all these elements under consideration, and we try to be as responsible about it as we can. Bottom line is we supply a service to sell artworks on behalf of clients, and if they would like to sell something, we try to optimize what they will get in return for it. but we do, and I definitely do, and we do discuss these things quite thoroughly, especially with young artists, because it's not right to destroy somebody's career. Absolutely. Very good example in our October free sale. We had a lot number 1, which was a Michael Kreber painting. And a lot of these like speculists people came up to us and said, great, who's this new hot artist? And I was like, hold on, this guy's been around for 25 years. And we hung it next to a Sigmar Polke painting because we really wanted to contextualize it. And I think we did a great service for the artist at the time, because he was mid-career, and I worked with all the gallerists together and said, listen, this is what's happening. We're taking this painting in. We would like to place it. It's going to be evening sale, and let's do this together. And we did do it together, and it was very successful. And in that particular case, the dealers and the collectors were very pleased with the results. But that's what I was trying to mention earlier on, that it's good to have a dialogue, because I understand your point of view, Simon, and it's very extreme in one direction, and yours is very extreme in the other direction. I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle, and I actually do think that some artists do get excited about high auction results, and possibly for the wrong reason. But it's not for me to say. Everybody's got their own. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
But this is
Did
a
that answer your
decent
question?
Yeah.
That used very well.
This is a very decent endeavor, and Martin is a very decent dealer. Martin is a very decent person, and I'm not denying that. And he's a friend, and I trust him, because I know this is the type of work he's worked with artists. He respects them, he likes them, he's close to them. But it's undeniable that in auction houses you have lists of artists, and you have your mission as often a junior specialist, or someone fairly new in the organization, is to find a work by that artist at whatever cost. So you're going to be on the phone, and you're going to, to someone someone you've sometimes advised, or you were with him in an art fair or in a gallery, to actually tell him you should buy that artist, very hot, And you call him 6 months later, or a year later, and say, we really want your work, So, that I don't call that providing a service to the art community. I call that providing a service to your company. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But this is the reality.
You provide a service to the community as a whole. I've never seen a person buying an artwork, even those buying with most noble intentions and don't care about the investment aspect. Never seen a collector showing off, saying, "Listen, this is a painting. I paid $1 million for it. It's now worth only 100,000." Never ever heard. You only hear the opposite story. I bought this, and now look what it's worth, and all of that. So nobody is insensitive to the fact that the values are going up. And even if the secondary market is strong, the artist will benefit on the primary market, because automatically the works on the primary market will sell at a different level. Now you can decide, as in extreme cases like one you've mentioned, to keep it at a certain level. And I'm told that for your next exhibition of Adrien Guény, you're going to, sell most of them to institutions, which is also his wish, so that it goes to museums and institutions, which is solidifying the market, which is great. But I think the auction houses do act in a very responsible ways, because when you have seen that there's some artists who have overproduced and suddenly their prices start going down, there are waiting lists of people wanting to sell those works at Sotheby's, Christie's and Phillips. And each one of these houses refuses to take more than 2 or 3 works by a given artist in any given sale, because they don't want to further accelerate.
And what they do is that then they multiply the amount of sales. So every month you get a sale. So there used to be seasons. There used to be a couple of sales in every city in the main marketplaces, and now you get a sale every month.
No,
so
you get a fair every month, you get a thing every month. It's just part of the bigger access that we have, which we discussed yesterday in the panel. So I think that's what makes it all the more interesting, because you have this massive supply, massive offer of things that are potentially available, and that's where the curating aspects take a much, much bigger role.
But I want to address what you said about the secondary market. And it is very important for us to have secondary market for our artists. But we have a massive investment in these artists of 50 years, 60 years with the gallery, 40 years. And we're responsible about the secondary market. An auction house, let's take Bob Ryman. You know, a highly sought after artist, great career. You know, not a lot of work comes on the secondary market. So Sotheby's takes a painting, estimates it at $18 to $21 million. I have the highest price for a Ryman, and I know the Ryman market better than anybody. Do they call me? No. They put it up at 18 to 21, and then I have the Ryman family saying, well, why didn't it sell? Or everybody saying, why didn't it sell? It has huge repercussions. And all the people who are looking at auction results look at this and say, well, that was bought in, but it was mishandled. It's not worth the value that they put on it, and rather than collaborating with a dealer, they go out on a limb like that.
That's the problem of the auction.
Unfortunate example from the past.
It was last year.
Exactly.
It was like a century ago.
Looking into
Exactly.
the future.
It was last year.
And the auction.
What was the price of that Ryman in your gallery?
It would have been 10 to 15, and we could have sold it. I could have sold that for probably $12 million, which is what happened. Somebody bid $12 million, but it was the guarantor who was a dealer who ended up with the
Now,
picture.
I'm just picking up this. Is that one of the collaborations we're talking about? Should there be more dialogue between the auction houses and the dealers in terms of setting
Probably.
the estimates and what's happening? Is that happening more? I don't know, Martin. Is it happening more?
Not
or-
at a high level.
No.
Not even at a lower level.
I think that in some cases it does happen, and it's very interesting that you have some artists who are regularly in auctions and where there is a very good, close exchange of information or advice between the galleries representing the artist and the auction house. And you have some dealers or gallerists who are obsessed in making sure that their artist doesn't get near an auction. And in the end, what does it do? It harms that artist. Because when, particularly with the new types of buyers who have come onto the market over the last 5 years, if they never see a work by this artist, they feel very insecure. They think, my God, this guy is never up at auction. So it's reassuring when an artist is regularly in the auctions. And so I am absolutely convinced that those gallerists who are taking an open view and really look at what is the best interest of the artist, they seek a close contact with the relevant expert in the auction house.
Okay.
Nobody's denying that a secondary market is extremely important. It just has to be responsible.
Right. Okay. When I want to, we'll stop this. The blood is almost starting to go now. I think what's interesting when I talk about the migration of auction house people into the gallery system as well, and vice versa to some degree, in Martin's case as well. But in terms of the effect that's going to have or has had, is that a very positive thing? The auction house people, senior people with incredible contacts and contacts within the auction house still, moving into the commercial market. Is that having a lot of collaborative effects, like positive effects? Is that making itself felt? The fact that these people are now...
It's individual.
Some examples?
It's individual, absolutely.
Were you talking
Well, he's talking about like Brett
Gorvy
moving
or
into
exactly.
partnering with Dominique, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm
But we
sure,
are yet
I'm
to
sure we're
see.
going to do great
thing.
things together.
Is that a good thing for the relationship, is what I'm saying?
We don't know yet.
It all
We don't know
depends.
yet.
It all depends. It
Yeah.
depends on the person.
It is, it's
It depends
individual.
on the intention,
Yes.
and it
Exactly.
depends on the personality. I mean, I'm always, because I was a gallerist, I'm always into dialogue, and it's been working very successful, and I'm quite pleased with that. But actually, what you just mentioned, there have been so many changes in the last couple of years, and why has that happened? Why are models being questioned? Why are we here in the first place? It's a very, very exciting moment, and it's a very exciting moment. And auction houses are now going into areas where there weren't before, but they're also doing it because there is a demand for it. And what I find quite interesting, what I've only learned in the last 4 years, is that there is a type of collector who really prefers to work with auction houses.
Oh, definitely.
And they really don't like working with galleries. And I was like, why is that? And, everybody has their own story and everybody has their own reason. And, with the expansion into the Asian market and,
They feel more
especially
comfortable at auction.
Chinese, for the time being, they
It'll
only
shift.
come to us and, and we open them doors to programs and other artists. And, I believe that in the long term, they're going to start working really intensely with galleries as well. So it's going to go that, it goes in either direction.
They feel it's a public forum.
They feel
and
it's
that it's more
and
transparent.
that there hasn't
but
been
it
a
often
history
isn't.
like in New York or like in Europe about the traditional gallery model. And, it's a very new market and it's new people.
Well,
and
that's
they're
one
very
thing I really
passionate.
want to talk about. And I think there's a number of places where there isn't that inbuilt tension that doesn't exist, like the new markets, like China, like Middle East, where the infrastructure isn't there and solidifies. Where are there more collaborations or possibility of collaborations in these new fields than there have been in Western markets?
It's not a collaboration, but they do enter through the auction forum. And we had a younger artist, and all of a sudden we were getting so many requests from Asia, and I said, what is going on? And Arnie said Christie's magazine said this was the most, promising young artist in the world. And all of us, and it was in Asia, it was distributed in Asia, so everybody was contacting us. So the auction does bring the international people into the marketplace.
It's always happened anyway. I've got
historically.
collectors who are very savvy, very they still have a resistance in trusting our prices, our gallery prices. I don't understand how it's a made-up price. An auction price is very simple. It's how much 1, 2, 3 people are supposed. I mean, there are cases of manipulation, but most of the time it's how much someone is prepared to pay for an artwork. So it's very, very simple, and they love that. And also they love the brand, and they love if you look at Christie's since 1766,
it's not going anywhere.
it's just, and there's the profile of James Christie, and it's just kind of wow, I want to buy from them.
Yeah.
It's fine, but what it does is that it puts people into it makes them become collectors. It brings them to the scene. It's very good.
I want to,
absolutely.
Simone. I mean, you spent a lot of effort that bringing new collectors into the market at Philips and young collectors and new markets. Did you see that as a competing with the galleries in terms of creating these new collectors?
No, in my case, it happened by necessity in many ways. I mean, by passion and necessity. Passion for contemporary art, which has been something I've always loved during my whole life. But professionally, the only time these two things came totally together, because before I was first with Old Masters, then with Impressionist Modern, is when I was with Philips. And we couldn't afford to focus on the areas that the big houses were focusing on. So we decided there's 3 areas we're going to focus on, which is emerging contemporary art, it's design, and it's photography. And we decided we're going to, in those fields, we're going to make it completely in a new way. We curate the sales totally, i.e. we turn down 80 or 90% of what we're being offered to sell, but we really construct the sales with mostly people who have never been sold at auction, and that we believe in. And we did the same thing in design and same thing in photography. And it initially was very, very tough, because you had to make a massive effort for a minimal result. But then it began to really work. And we then saw what role the secondary market can play in creating the value of an artist. I remember when the nurse exhibition took place at Barbara Gladstone, and they were selling for between $35,000 and $75,000. And I kept telling my collector friends that he's an incredible artist, and this new body of work is absolutely extraordinary. You should really try and get one. And it would go into one ear and go straight out of the other ear. And when we, for the first time, sold a nurse by Richard Prince for $1 million, suddenly these same people came and said, wow, where can you get me a Richard Prince? And so you have different collectors for whom art starts to register at a different level. So for some people it starts at the $1 million level, some people it starts at the $10 million level. I know some Roscoe buyers, and we said there in the private conversation with Susan, some of the key market makers today for Roscoe who didn't know who Roscoe was before he reached $40 million. And so when they saw that Roscoe, a good Roscoe, will sell in the $40 to $60 million range, suddenly they thought, my God, this is this is really interesting. So you have all these, the art market is a pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, you have a very, very small group of individuals who are prepared to pay, prepared and able to pay $100 million plus for a single work of art. And then you go down, and the bottom of the market is eBay, where you have, 120 million different people who every day go and buy things on that market. So I feel that it is, so we did with Philips, we viewed ourselves as curators, because we felt by having a very clear vision of who were the artists we were believing in, that this would make a difference. And so I remember there was a time when the 25 Grotians had all been sold at Philips, not a single one at Sotheby's and Christie's. When it reached a certain level, suddenly Sotheby's and Christie's were beginning to be interested in it. Now, if you look at the top list of the top prices of Grotian, it's a very different thing. Same thing with Urs Fischer. Same thing with Ai Weiwei. Same thing.
But in a way, were you then acting as more of a galleries then, in terms of relationships with?
What?
No.
No.
I mean, you were in terms of taking, developing new talent,
it's
developing
championing artists that you believe
in.
And in that sense,
it's shaping a market. It's not shaping a career.
No.
Okay. There is difference, I suppose. Is that the thing?
But all I can tell you, I think it is also shaping careers, because we heard yesterday that the thing that really matters and the client is the artist, and I agree. How many artists are now feeling very insecure by this current environment, and they come and ask for advice. They say, particularly some of the big artists who are represented by 4 or 5 galleries, who each have a geographical area of representation. So they say, listen, I have 3 galleries representing me. This 4th one wants to represent me as well. Is it good for me if I agree to be represented as well? Or you have young artists coming. How many works can I produce each year? How many can I get away without flooding the market? And so what an artist wants is somebody to hold his hand and guide him, not only for the next exhibition, but guide him for the secondary market, guide him also to help him with projects that are outside of the art world, commercial collaborations, etc. And that's why I think it's interesting that we see some disruptive things happening, like what Swiss Beats is doing with no commission. We didn't mention that yesterday with thing on fairs.
But can I stop you there? Because I really want to do is get back to, I think we feel like we're swaying too far away, what we really want to talk about, which is the new collaborations. And I think that's interesting. I think a lot of this stuff is about the past, as what's happened. Are there instances that you guys have seen where, I think, and you can break this down into sort of formal collaborations, but then we were talking the other day about a lot of informal collaborations that go on. What evidence or initiatives that you guys have seen where there is a collaboration, whether it's informal or not?
I would say private sales.
Yeah?
I mean, I've been approached by Sotheby's with a Franz Klein painting that they're unable to sell, for example, and it's exactly what a client of ours is looking for. So I think mainly with private sales, because they're acting as dealers, and they have access to material that doesn't come into the gallery necessarily, and I think that is a way we can collaborate. But what François said earlier, it's fascinating. They'll take the artists on and then call you the day before the sale and say there's no interest in this or there's no interest in that, and expect you to bid on every single artist in their huge telephone book size catalogs, and you just can't do it.
That's another unfortunate example.
It happens every
We're getting
sale.
a lot of them now.
And they'll call you before an evening sale. Even another, I'll get a call from London saying the sale starts in an hour. There's no interest.
Well, Mark,
give me your number, by the way.
Yeah.
But Jeffrey, I think that whole kind of reflection or self-reflection on what are potential fruitful or collaborations or tensions, is an emanation of our own confusion about this, because the contemporary art at auction is something that's still fairly new. We're still kind of finding our ground, and it started in a kind of let's put it a 1973 kind of start date on it, and it did start on a kind of wrong foot in a way. It's a collector in New York who puts some works in an auction, and the artist is there, and some say he punches him, some say I don't know if I can repeat what he tells him, but yes, and Rauschenberg says I want to kiss because when can I say that? Yeah, so he corners a skull and he says, who was selling his work and the work of Jasper Johns, and he says, I want to kiss because when I get fucked, I like to be kissed. So here we have an artist to understand. Here we have an artist to see something that is.
Said that, by the way.
But that was the first sale when a work of art made $100,000.
I know.
That was the biggest price.
And so in a way, what I want to get at is that kind of beautiful relationship between galleries, and I mean, we all work together. We all like each other. We all do things together. It's fine. We all have common endeavors. We like secondary market. We believe in markets. We believe in artists' careers. But it kind of started on the wrong foot. If you're gonna spend your life with someone and it starts like that, when you get punched or kind of cornered, it's kind of it's showing that the artist is not necessarily very happy that it happens that way. Yeah. But it happens. That's fine.
Simon, you can't wait.
I'm very happy that François mentions the skull sale, because the first contemporary sales were done by Sotheby's and Christie's in 1970. So, and then the focus was 1945 onwards, which meant the last 25 years. And when we speak of the emerging art auctions, it's basically art of the last 25 years. And now it's post-war and contemporary art. But it's very interesting when you see those catalogs of Sotheby's and Christie's of the 70s. So, for instance, half of the contents is hyperrealism, was mostly artists that you no longer hear of. Or you have full-page illustration of Ernesto Trova, and then you have in the same catalog somewhere a tiny little postage stamp size illustration of Cy Twombly. And so you see how taste evolves and what is being looked at the particular moment as particularly relevant, and how this always evolves. And so it's not so new that you have artists that shoot up and then shoot down again. It's just been amplified by social media.
And it's kind of frustrating that auction houses have become the tastemaker that they are, because it used to be us. So you're like, wait a second, I used to tell people what's good and not good. Now they don't even trust me. They say, "Oh, but look at the auction catalog. This is," and there is an illustration of, if it's a Jeff Koons, there's going to be a
Manzoni with a Ryman or something.
I know
that both white.
I've done that.
It's just so depressing.
I did these catalogs myself when I was there.
Sorry.
So no.
Martin, would you like to respond to these?
No, I think this is going pretty well for me.
Are you enjoying it? You're enjoying it.
No, but one thing also about the auction records and secondary market, we'll look at a sale. Collectors now print out ArtNet all the time, always looking at ArtNet. And they'll say, "Oh, but this made this price," and you say, "Yes, but it was relined. The painting was relined." Does ArtNet say that? No, it was in terrible condition. It was an insurance claim. So they're skewed figures. They're not absolutely a reflection of the marketplace.
Basically, it goes back to what Lisa said, that a personal conversation between client and gallerist is very important. You can't just generalize what you see, these numbers. There's a story behind everything.
Right.
But I think it's interesting. I want to go back to sort of what I talked about in terms of the auction houses becoming more involved in things that dealers are used to do, like art advisory. I mean, that's a sort of very groundbreaking thing, bringing Amy and team in-house as art advisors, presumably operating across the whole market, like, advising their clients to go to Christie's and buy something, or to go to a gallery and buy something. Is that one of the things that drew you back to the auction world? Is this changing of the model in some way, and is that going to make a difference?
Well, I was particularly interested in the questioning of the model when I started my dialogue with Sotheby's in the spring of this year, and Alan, I've known for a very long time and respect him and his views very much. Alan Schwartzman, who's joined Sotheby's with Amy Capellazzo, and I'm fascinated by Amy's biography as well. And by the way, she handled things. So absolutely, yes. I think I think that's what I tried to suggest earlier on, that it's a very exciting time because things are being questioned, and these models are incredibly old, and the gallery model is incredibly old, and we're having constructive conversations to see in what direction will this go, and a small change can do a big thing. Is this now threatening to the art advisory industry? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. No, I think it's a natural evolvement of demand at the end of the day.
It's more professional. I mean, auction houses always had special client services, was the name of the department when I was there. So they always had in-house advisory service, but it was homegrown. This is taking it on a very Alan is an
Yeah.
unbelievable advisor. It's
Yeah.
taking it on a very professional level.
Right.
Yeah, and, and who's respectful about all these elements.
Exactly.
Right. So
I think that every person who's active in the art market is an art advisor at the end of the
I
day.
agree.
And what I find fascinating when now being on the other side of, I will not use your term, is that when you deal with one of the three auction houses, and if you happen to ask 2 or 3 individuals in the same company, you will get 3 different types of advice if you ask information on a particular work. And you see the difference between those who absolutely feel the pressure of selling that work and solely focus on making a sale happen and getting you in as a bidder, and those who give you an advice which is maybe disserving their company or the selling that particular lot, but which in the long term will make you go back to that person because you know this person gives you proper advice. And so I think you have inside the auction houses some people who have incredible integrity in terms of the advice they give you, and therefore when they leave the houses all that they can build on that integrity because they always know that the clients who ask for that advice, they got unbiased advice regardless if they were on which side they were on.
So it's not an institutional issue. It's much more of a personal, relationship building thing, and on different basis as well.
Well, I mean, if you work for a big firm, you invariably, whether it's a big gallery or a big or an auction house, you might have less freedom of judgment and of choice. But that's normal. I mean, but as Simon says, you have decent people everywhere. You have assholes everywhere.
Actually,
That's all.
we're such a large place that you actually do have more freedom. I mean, there are certain artists I've never sold that are in the gallery stable. I work with, it's almost like umbrella companies underneath, I mean, little individual businesses under a big company.
But I think the one step further than that is the idea of managing artists and artist estates from an auction house perspective. Is that a new thing? Is there huge conflicts because you're actually managing their career as well as selling it on the free market?
Well, let's
that an
see.
issue?
Who are they representing? They're not
Who are we
representing
talking
artists
about
yet.
then?
Artist
Yeah.
estates. I think they're putting. I'm not sure if they are.
They're
how
trying
much
to.
there
Yeah,
are.
I don't know, but
It's an attempt.
they've
Yeah.
hired to do that, but
Yeah,
nothing's
exactly.
taken place yet.
It's not
so
happened
we'll
yet,
see
but
if it
and-
works.
and we-
Is there potential? Is there? Because I think what's interesting is because finally, in a way, the auction houses become stakeholders in the artists' careers or the artists' estates' careers, which was the thing that they weren't before, which made it uneven. Is that going to even the playing field in some way? Is that a
We'll
good
see if
thing?
it works. It may not work.
Yeah.
That model, it may have to be
You
shifted
know,
altogether.
estate people who run estates are very different kind of people. So who knows? Some people are very, very attracted by some very structured deals, and some people are kind of just see a balance sheet at the end of the or want to get a check, or some people are obsessed with perpetuating the legacy of their father, wife, whatever. It's very different. I mean, I don't know that if to make a conscious, aggressive move into artist estate is even realistic. I mean, we've just seen one that's kind of backfired, didn't it? Ruth
Azawa.
Azawa was managed by someone at Christie's, I believe. Kind of. I mean, they were flirting for a long time, and it's just been done. It's just been, but with a commercial gallery. So I think that at the end, galleries always will have for heirs or people who have a stake in an estate, galleries, because they run an exhibition program, because they have a history, because they have that kind of deceptive sometimes, at least conscious love of what they do, or care of what they do. I think they will have more attraction for estates still.
Yeah.
I mean, the purpose. I agree. The purpose of an auction house is to make money, and the purpose of a gallery. People who started in my generation again never thought that they were going to make a dime in the business. It was about having a life in art, a life with artists, building careers, and I do totally agree with you that we need a secondary market that's strong. We need art fairs; they're crucial to the business. But like I said this morning, if you don't have an art gallery, you don't have an art fair. If you don't have an art gallery, you don't have an auction house. You have to. I mean, Pace has represented certain artists for 50 years, 55 years, and there were decades when you just keep showing them and nothing sold. Or Bob Irwin, who's one of the genius of our times, and you just keep pouring money into the situation and building things and, digging a bigger financial nadir for yourself, but it was about
it would
a
be
different
nice.
thing.
It would be very nice if everybody did their job.
Okay. And on that note, I'd like to open it up to the Lisa Schiff has her hand up. This is a good sign.
It's the moment we've been waiting for.
Didn't take long.
Did you finish your sentence yet?
No, that's okay.
If the art world were Star Wars, I feel like the auction house are the Death Stars, and they've turned Amy and Alan into stormtroopers. But actually, I actually don't believe that. I
That's a
think
good
that's
start,
how
though.
we have painted it. And I think it is hypocrisy, 100%. There's like a vilification of the auction houses, which is not good. And what I'm happy about is that Alan is at Sotheby's, and that you put a crabber up in the right place, because there's nothing worse than seeing a really good Albert Olin in the day sale or the morning sale when it should be in the evening sale. So I think what you guys are all saying is the same thing. We need talented people working everywhere and open, because I can tell you how many times I've gone to a gallery to resell something and been personally vilified for doing it. My client's been vilified for doing it. And many times a gallery cannot sell the work. And so I'm doing everything I can not to let this thing get into auction if it's going to upset the gallery so much, because I have to preserve my clients' relationships. So that's something also that happens quite often. So I think as long as also advisors and collectors are acting responsibly as well, and there's a way to resell responsibly, but we are not 50 years ago at pace where maybe, when money didn't matter and you bought one or two things a year, and now as a collector, you're expected to keep buying from every gallery all the time so that you can get the thing you actually really want, but you're not allowed to sell anything. And I feel like there's this whole very ingrained kind of good and bad in the art world, that if we talk about money, it's not good, and we have to only care about meaning. And of course, it doesn't exist without that. But I feel there is just an inbuilt hypocrisy. I can't stand.
Is there a question coming?
Yeah.
Well, it's great.
Sorry. No, I just don't like when collectors say that I don't sell anything. But I did want to ask a question. Sorry.
Yeah,
That was more of a comment.
That's a good one.
What do you guys think about artists going right to auction houses? And what about Damien Hirst and auction
That's a blip. That's a rare thing. I mean, it
And he
happens
blew up
once.
his market.
It happens once a generation.
Yeah.
And he blew up his
It's like an
market
earthquake.
completely.
It's
at
not
the
meant
time.
to be.
Listen, if you look at Asian artists, or if you look at artists who don't come from United States or from Western Europe, there's a very different attitude, and I think that you should look at everything with an open mind, and that anything is possible. I think the art market is very protective of the way it's been done, and it's, of all the markets that we know, the market that has changed the least over the last 15 years, whereas you see nearly every other market that has been turned upside down through the technological revolution. And so now there are some little things happening which are trying to change things structurally. Whether it will succeed or not, that's another question. But I think one should look at everything with an open mind, and whenever somebody is bold to take a risk and do something new, it is something interesting, something worthwhile looking at.
But I don't think the auction houses are interested in building a career. I mean, again, you can't see one of something or achieve one price and say it's a market. So is an auction house going to take an artist and put on an exhibition? Because people can't understand the work by seeing one thing here and one thing there. They understand it at art fairs because they've seen shows in spaces. So is an auction really going to build an artist's career, listen to all of their problems, get them a lawyer for their divorce, seriously? It's a whole different job.
It is a whole different job, but it's a job that somebody who works in an auction house is just as well equipped to be able to do it if he decided or she decided to devote his or her time. You are the proof. You are both ex-auction people who are doing a very successful... No, I mean, you are an ex-auction person who's become a very, very trusted, important dealer, and Martin is the opposite, a very trusted dealer who became a very good auction house specialist. And I feel at the end of the day, it goes to what is your commitment to the artist? What is your commitment, to your responsibility towards those artists. And you cannot say an auctioneer cannot do it or a gallerist cannot do it. The auction houses have taken over certain activities that the gallerists were doing, and there's no reason why the gallerists shouldn't take over some of the activities the auctioneers are doing. We are in an open world. Nothing is set that you're not allowed to do that. It's like big banks who are doing different kind of things, and there are small merchant banks who do one specific things. But nobody says, oh my God, this bank is doing all these different activities. Why are they doing that? It's appalling.
The phone. Question?
It's not a question, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to add on
Yeah.
to that. I'm from Istanbul. Our market is very, very small compared to what we're talking here. And it's not an established market as well. I mean, we're trying our best as collectors, as gallerists and artists. There are times when we try to reach collectors that don't come to the gallery, as you mentioned, through the auction. It happens. It's a good way, actually, to show the work to other collectors, because there's a limit to people who buy from the gallery. So this has happened. It happens. And many years ago, actually, maybe some of you can remember, Sotheby's London, actually, they had an auction of Turkish art. It didn't work at the end, but there was, of course, mutual benefits, because they wanted the Turkish collectors, and we wanted to open to the world. So there was this, actually, it was a little bit like a career, not a program, but initiative, let's say. So I do agree with you, Simone, that we need to be open-minded, because there's another part of the world that actually needs these platforms.
We're all open-minded, I think. The only thing is that we are kind of always very kind of protective of our own kind of industry.
Me too. I mean, I learned the business in New York. I came back to Istanbul. So I know, I mean, I was taught all of these and how the auction houses are enemies.
No.
I mean,
No.
I was a little bit. I mean, I was there in 2003, so it was a little different time.
Watch it.
Well, I mean, now we can talk about this at least. So I know all of the information, but you know, when you come to the practicality, you sometimes need these tools to kind of establish the market.
Right.
But I'm really against the dangerous moves of speculation, and you know, it happens also, like in Turkey.
Great. Questions? Any other? Lots of questions.
They're coming
Georgina
everywhere.
gets priority, I think, somehow.
Just, I'd like to pick up on what Simon said and ask you a little bit more. When you said galleries can take initiatives, do what the auction. What were you thinking of specifically?
I think it's all up to you to think beyond what
that's
can
not
be
an
done.
answer.
I'm giving you an evasive answer, but I feel that everybody can do what they would like to do, and so. As we said yesterday, some galleries want to be animating and cultural programs that bring in new people or bring in new things. But in the way that auction houses have decided to do private sales, and they do need the private sales in order to be able to be commercially viable. Just imagine what would happen to the big auction houses if they were not doing any private sales. Well, they probably wouldn't be here. So it is very important for them, just for the keeping the cost structure going, because it's 10 times more expensive to sell something at auction in terms of the infrastructure you need to be able to do it successfully, as opposed to being a dealer, a mid-sized gallery, for instance, or a smaller gallery. So I think that there is no reason why either one of the mega galleries or doesn't decide to do some of the activities that the auction houses do. I mean, there's not the monopoly that say they are the only ones who are allowed to do that kind of thing.
No, I don't think auction houses are the enemy, but I think we all need each other. Art fairs, galleries, auction houses need one another to thrive, survive, and thrive. But to become a giant conglomerate, all under one roof, I think is a mistake. I think it would be a mistake.
Okay. Question?
Yes, my name is Martin Bernard, and I'm an owner of Barro Galleria with my ex-wife here. in São Paulo.
She's rolling her eyes.
That's what she's saying.
She's the founder of the gallery. Yes, my question is the following: if there is a different, and I think it's quite clear that there are different business models between galleries and auction house. And how is it possible to integrate the different activities under the same roof without having a conflict of interest, and how to deal with this conflict of interest?
I mean,
Martin?
Didn't you just say I agree?
No, I
Yeah.
agree with him. It
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
conflict
yeah.
of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think what you just said kind of answered that question. It is a conflict of interest, and I completely agree with what you said, and so does.
the art world tends to thrive on and exist
As
through
Louisa Buck said to me,
conflicts of interest.
the art
anyway.
world is no conflict, no interest,
No.
basically.
So
Like symposiums.
Yes.
Hello. Well, I don't really know, in fact, if the new models of this collaboration, because I see that I think that there is something very possible. I work a lot with Africa and Middle East, and I have the case of even my artist simply telling me for funding an exhibition or a big project, think about, don't worry. I mean, an artist with, I can't say who, but with whom I work from the Middle East, telling me, don't worry, I can put just a work in auction and we can fund the exhibition. And so at first, from my position from here, from a Western position in Europe, I said, are you crazy? I said, no worries, it's something we do. And in fact, this was something that happened to me at the beginning of my very little 5 years as a gallerist. But now it's 5 years that I work in the Middle East and with Africa. And this is something we do. There is, I feel here we have some kind of diabolization or as Liza talked before, of the auction house, where the gallery has a model, the auction house has a model, and it's very difficult to find a way to collaborate of whether we need each other. I really feel that there is more distance. So I don't know, maybe the new models of collaboration can be found, as the example of Turkey, in other parts of the world. And in the case of Africa, I don't know if you want, Jeffrey, to talk a bit more about that, because there are things happening in Sotheby's with Africa and its relationship, and there is also a strategy. Something I've been approached by people from Sotheby's in terms of we should have a coffee to talk about collaboration. We're doing new things. So my question, so first was a comment, but now I would like to know what Sotheby's is doing, because is there something happening to work in a way with galleries, new models or something? Is there something you're working on?
I don't think there is like a strategy of a new model, but I think that we all understand that. I mean, what's the definition of collaboration? We should have probably asked that
Should have
question at the
started with
beginning.
that. It's a little
I mean,
late,
in
Mark.
my mind,
Details.
I collaborate with gallerists and dealers on a daily basis because I've got a phone exchange, or I'm looking for something that they have, or I have something that maybe they're looking for, and then we just work together, basically buying and selling art. That's what I do, but maybe also because of my background. But lots of other people do that too. I mean, you mentioned that Klein example. It also goes in the other direction quite often. I don't think there is a new strategy, not that I'm aware of anyway, but I agree with you, absolutely. But
I think we mentioned that sort of in the new markets, they often do come together and work collaboratively to build the market, because there's no one else there to build it. So it's
But
interesting.
maybe just what we're not going to be doing is like representing artists or something like that. But we have an ambitious S2 program where we basically show secondary market material. And we just hired, someone just joined us from Christie's called Darren Leake, who did a great job at Christie's on the Mayfair space. But some really great like Polka Richter show together and so on. And we've got like a really exciting Kusama, Louis Bourgeois show coming up. And so we've got somebody on our team who wants to do something like that. And we work with dealers and we work with collectors and we work with potential buyers on that. But again, it's not a new strategy, but we're really trying to do great things at a very high level because what we're all really passionate about. So,
Right, question in the back first.
oh, Lisa.
And Lisa. Pretending.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to say that I was Jeffrey's student at the Sotheby's Institute of Art. And I'm just surprised that we have the word institute up there, but nobody's talking about education again. So could it be that just like Sotheby's, the auction houses can give back to community in this, again, like connoisseurship aspect and not investment, so more of the like cultural, educational talk and not so much of the money talk? And what could these programs look like?
Everyone's looking at you for some reason.
Well, you're the auction.
Here I am.
We're not there any longer.
Improvising real quick. So, yes, absolutely. I mean, the big auction houses obviously both have education programs. Freeze, that's another big corporation decided to also go into that direction. It is very important to share our knowledge, our passion, our inspiration, and why we do this. And you obviously have got a fantastic thing going there. So I think it's great that you mentioned this, and I hope that answered your question.
Kind of. Lisa Schiff. They're keeping the microphone from you.
Yeah. There's somebody back, Jeffrey. There's somebody
sorry.
back there.
Hello.
I don't see. Sorry.
There's
What do you want to go first, please? Yeah.
My name is Juan Moreno. I'm from Barcelona, and I've both worked in auction house and a gallery. And it's clear that today auction houses depend heavily on the work done by the galleries. But to what extent do galleries feel the utility that the auction house can be used to their advantage?
Well, I think there are advantageous things that happen, but I don't think that they can be used to our advantage. I mean...
Do you not place... Would a gallery sometimes place something into an auction in order to...
For a client,
build a
certain
career?
things are better sold at auction, certain things are better sold privately, so I negotiate with auction houses on behalf of collectors, and but we're not really using them or manipulating them in that way, or maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. I just think advantageous things happen for galleries if somebody discovers a work at auction, then comes into the gallery, that type of thing. But in terms of in
making people who are first buyers feel more comfortable in that otherwise quite intimidating world of ours. So that's a very good thing that auction house can do, and they're very good at it. As Simon pointed out, no market is sometimes as no secondary market is sometimes as kind of detrimental to your artist than an overheated secondary market in a kind of overdrive. So that's a second thing. It's a nice social event.
Simon's dying.
No, I think galleries constantly consign to auction houses, and those of us who have been auctioneers, who are auctioneers, do know how much galleries do consign to auctions. Buying, we said earlier already, and consigning, I'm saying now. And so, again, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning. We all need each other at the end of the day. And again, the auction houses cannot function behind the galleries, without the galleries, and vice versa. And there's one big segment of the art world we have not mentioned, which is the whole museum world, the institutional world, which is just as important a element in this whole cake. And there is also a great animosity sometimes between the commercial side of the art world, which we are all part of, and the non-commercial side of the art world. And I've heard curators saying, museum curators saying, we will not touch an artist if he has a strong market. So I said, this is pathetic. Your museum shows Picasso and Matisse. Are you going to not endorse these artists just because they happen to have a strong market? Her comment was on contemporary art. So again,
that's a whole other subject.
That's a whole other subject again.
But
we all need each other at the end of the day, and that's why somebody said we are a family. Yes, we are a family, and there are disagreements within a good family, and that's what makes family life interesting and exciting.
Lisa Schiff.
I have a question, actually.
Wow.
So
a novel idea.
Bravo.
If the kiss of death for an artist's career is when secondary market prices drop, or primary market prices drop below secondary market,
It's not the kiss of death.
Not
it's
at
pretty
all.
bad.
No.
No, it's not
Not
the kiss
at
of
all.
death. It's not
But
the
it's
kiss of
not
death.
good.
It requires a little explanation. But
That's exactly it.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Well, from my perspective, in placing something in the $250,000 to $500,000 realm, and then seeing that it's selling for $20,000 at auction terrifies people from a monetary point of view. And yes, sometimes people don't care, but and I feel horrible for those artists that I care about so much, and when it gets to that place. So my question is, because auction records are so powerful, there is a technological advancement happening right now that will crowdsource primary market prices. Are you okay with that? And do you think?
No, it's fine. We actually have a printed price list on the counter.
But
I mean, you go into Gagosian, you can't get a price.
Yeah, but there's not a price list. I'm talking like a online ArtNet kind of thing where you can search any artist's primary prices.
Like Magna.
Yeah. But if and whether he does it or somebody else does it, I think it has the potential to be as revolutionary as ArtNet was in 1998 or whenever it started. So maybe I'm just curious if you could see a power shift happening vis-a-vis, the numbers. I kind of feel like it would be a level playing field.
Well, either way, it has to be contextualized for a collector. It has to be explained. You can't look at a spreadsheet and say, this is the market or this is what happened. Everything has nuance to it. So
That I understand. I'm just curious if what you have, what.
But I'm just drawing that, and something I was going to talk about, we didn't have time, but I think another where there's a level playing field is the online market, the online world, where it's new and it's fresh, and there are collaborations between auction houses and galleries on the same platforms. So I think that's another area where you can start seeing things coming together. But thank you for that. Any other?
Well,
You've got a microphone. Yeah, and then you.
Just quickly, but my question was about that. What kind of collaboration with galleries online? I wanted to talk about the online, and also if you had some data, because online is something that always, for gallerists, has been, and 2 years ago I remember a shock with the Padelate talk. So about online, what could you say? And about this collaboration.
Well, I mean, the only thing I think Martin has some numbers to give you.
He's
but
pulling out his facts.
He's pulling out his numbers.
Find them there.
but just quickly, I mean, that's something I was looking at. This Artsy and Invaluable both have platforms where they now have sellers who are galleries and auction houses. So they're sharing these platforms, which is a new thing, I think. Yeah.
Just to give you some figures, at Sotheby's there was a 20% increase on online buyers. In 2016, in total, $155 million worth of artworks were sold online.
But what do you mean online?
From Sotheby's
No,
online
but what do you
auction.
mean
People were
online? But I
bidding
mean, is it
online.
online bid or?
Excuse me?
Is it an online bid or is it?
Yeah,
Bidding in
online
a
bidding.
sale.
Online bidding. Yeah.
That's not really a.
That's not
online.
online.
That's not
Exactly.
online. That's not really an
Auction.
I agree with
It's
François.
not an online auction, absolutely, but it's online bidding. And what's quite interesting about these statistics is that 19% of those are completely new to us. Clients that had never registered with us before. So there is something is happening there, and it's quite exciting.
Jocelyn, did you ever?
Yeah, if you think about collaborations, which is the theme, rather than just the market in general, I think if you really, you told us that auction and secondary market apply to contemporary art and to recently made art. So as a certain extent, most of the art, which is really like experimental nowadays, is absolutely not in the secondary market and is not represented in auction houses. I'm thinking about video art, because we had this kind of understanding that art is a painting or physical object, which is not it doesn't reflect what's happening now in terms of artistic production. And galleries reflect what is being produced nowadays, and sometimes it doesn't have a market. So I'm speaking about performance, about conceptual art, which is not material, or video art, which and the market for visual art is shrinking nowadays, while it's getting more and more important in terms of artistic discourse nowadays. So are there ways? I mean, and now we hear about galleries and auction houses working together to expand the market in new areas, but always is this idea, okay, let's focus on Korea, let's focus on Africa. For me, it's very reactionary to always think in terms of geographic territories, like, but because it's at the end, it will be, a painting from the 60s, or this artist from Africa from the 80s, who was not in the global art market. And I think I'm really interested to know if they are like on the auctioner side, if there is like a thinking to integrate in the market areas of artistic production, which is not so easy to represent in an artistic in a catalog or on an online on a computer on a screen.
Performance art or new media art or things like that.
It's only if they start programming like galleries, because an auction's not going to do anything unless it's a money-making vehicle for them.
Neither
Where
the big
galleries put on something and we think this show won't make any money at all, we'll lose a lot of money on this exhibition, but it's important to do. They don't take risks like that.
So, in this capitalist world, the people who are taking risks are always the people without money. And that's very, big. I don't know if Pace is looking at this kind of, you were mentioning an artist, but do you represent artists who don't have a physical production?
We started a business model in California called Art and Technology, Pace Art and Technology, and I met the attorney here today, sitting in the third row, who is from Berlin, who represents Random International, who we work with now. So we're working with, artists who work in a completely different way, and so yes, we do. Thank you.
Yeah,
and Bob Irwin was that, by the way. They don't have direct plans, right?
Along these lines, I have actually a concrete question that I'd love to ask, because it's related to what Jocelyn said. Say I bought a Tino Segal, and I want to sell it, and you and I have been friends for 25 years. You're the only person I had a fallout with Marion, don't want to sell it to her. How would you handle that?
Pick up the phone, say hi. No, I mean, it depends, It's very, this is a very extreme and specific situation, but I would definitely, first of all...
I'm just curious.
I would just see, can I place it? Do I have a client for it? Straight away, before actually considering auction. And if you would insist on an auction, I would consider it, absolutely.
Would you call Marion and actually ask her about the work and the conditions under which it was sold? And what might be the best?
She would then call you and stop you from this whole process happening.
And what if I say, too bad, I don't want anything from her ever again, and this is how I want to do it, and my loyalty is to Martin?
Let's have a role play thing going on.
I just think this is one of those potential new ways of collaborating, that maybe she could assign the collector, but you could do the deal. I don't know.
I would be completely open to it, and I'm pretty confident that we would place together in a good way.
You wouldn't have to call her at the last minute and say we bid on this.
It was always my dream to be able to sell a Tino Segal at auction, and sadly it did not materialize the possibility of doing it, because I thought this would have been
Did you
really
chase a
fun,
consignor?
A fun, innovative thing to do. Also, to answer Jocelyn's question, it was also my dream to do an all video auction, to do an auction just with videos, and I have discussed it on numerous occasions with my former colleagues at Philips, and the commercial reality, sadly, had made us to have to abandon it, because if you were going to go ahead with an auction where you were going to, in the best case, maybe sell 15% of what was being offered in the sale, we would have made a greater disservice to video art than a service. And so very reluctantly, it is the commercial reality that Susan referred to, which prevented us from actually going through and doing that plan. Yes.
If video art starts to sell in 10 years for a huge amount, auction houses will handle it. That's
no. But the thing is, the difference between an auction house having a big failure and a gallery having an exhibition with nothing sells is the public side of an auction. If you have if you're an auction house, you have an auction that nothing sold. It's really tough for the auction house, very difficult, because it's totally public. Whereas we know of plenty of exhibitions that nothing sold of, but there is no repercussions because there's not that transparency.
Also, if I may just add, again, I see this as a circle. Video art is not so popular right now, but I'm pretty sure that's coming back. And very recently, there were a couple of examples of very successful auction results. One for Bruce Nauman at Christie's in the last season. And no, that wasn't a risk. You're absolutely right. But it was a video art.
There you go. Any other questions? No? I mean, I think I'm slightly curious.
I think there's a question over there.
Oh, you have a question? Yeah.
Just following up on Jocelyn's comment and your comments, this is exactly what I think the difference between an auction house and some galleries is. The capacity and the ability and the will to invest in a long-term basis, building up the career of an artist without any guarantee that you're going to have success.
That's right.
And this is something to celebrate. We have different roles, we have different missions.
Both areas of work are fine.
We all feed each other.
Yeah.
But this is a very important difference, and it is the difference between one area of work and the other. They can be complementary sometimes, there can be collaborations, there can be interesting conversations, but by default, an auction house will never be willing to support an artist for 10, 20 years without having sold one work.
Exactly.
Some galleries do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For 50 years.
And some dealers became very, very wealthy because of the works they have not been able to sell.
I was interested, we've been talking quite a lot of the auction gallery relationship on a high level. A lot of the people who are here are galleries who are at mid-level, so we talked about this. Are there different issues that galleries who aren't selling works in the millions or selling, maybe not in evening sales or things?
Are you asking the audience
I'm
the
asking
question?
the audience, yeah. If you want to answer it, you're
no,
more
it's
than
okay.
But I'm just curious if you have any particular concerns. Are we speaking too high level, or are there concerns about auction houses at a lower level as well? It's all perfect.
This is the problem with asking an audience.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd cry anyway. Yeah.
I might have a case study. I'm about to show this year an artist that has been disappeared during 10 years and who rocked the auction. I think it was Sotheby's. I don't look much, but I think it was Sotheby's in Doha, maybe 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So he's now with this auction, the Arab living artist more valuated. But I am a small gallery, so I'm very happy for my love and passion for his work. So now I have this question of working with someone that has been out of our ecosystem during more than 10 years. He had a wonderful exhibition, well, not an exhibition, but this wonderful auction with wonderful results for a great collection. Everybody knows it. But now I will have in Madrid a wonderful show, and I don't know really how to approach it. So
on what level?
On commercial level, as a gallery, practically, I will receive the work. I will have to set a price. People, I know I have a lot of demand because it's someone that people are really expecting to. I won't sell anything, as Susan was with the example she said, but this is the case of the reality of a small gallery from Madrid in front of something in auction. The sale he made, it was £1,005,000. So
you're lucky.
Yeah, well, no, but I know in fact.
Sounds like
but it's not. It's not what I will be selling. You understand me?
Collaboration.
Yeah. So it's not what I will be selling.
Is it one auction result? Just one price?
Yeah, well, it was one price. It's a piece that was made with stencils. It's in the Qatar Museum Authority who acquired it.
That's what Georgina is.
Yes, I will have similar pieces. Well, it's a case you ask for something related. It's a problematic I have. I'm looking forward to hear from you.
I think we're going to have to start wrapping up. I think there's one thing I would interesting. I mean, I thank you. You guys have been very honest and open, and it's not often we get that openness and hear what actually is happening inside. But I think is there anything as a sort of last word that you think would be instrumental in bringing the collaboratory side of both of these things? Anything needs to happen, or is in the process of happening, that is going to change things much more in terms of blurring?
I mean, if I may get started on this, I mean, the subject matter is new models and collaborations, and we haven't come up with a single one, which is quite interesting. And I think that speaks for itself. I think, you know, the rules are defined, and yes, we are working together on a daily basis. And, you know, I think communication is key, and I'm totally with you on the critical points that you both made. But I don't think they're going to be very exciting new models of collaboration.
So it sounds like is a collaboration just about the way the two sides are working together on an informal basis, rather than a relationship rather than an institutional thing?
And they're very much about personal relationships too.
Very much.
And it's throughout the art world too. So I believe, you know, that I believe strongly about these spheres of knowledge, these spheres of competence, and I strongly believe that, you know, this is one of the most exciting things. If someone in an auction house has for 20, 30 years kind of developed an astute knowledge of a market, great. I mean, I'm in awe of that, and I would like to learn from that. But that's we work together. We have similar endeavors at the end.
This generation, definitely, it's completely different from the one prior.
Simon, last word?
The answer is talking galleries.
Because it always comes back to talking galleries.
There's a way. Okay,
well done.
No, I genuinely feel that spending 2 days with people having, you know, being in the same field and a lot of whom didn't have a chance to know prior is fantastic. It's dialogue and conversations, both the ones on stage, but all the conversations happening parallelly to it. I think it's a great thing, because the more communication there is, there's a better understanding.
Adam, did you have last, or you?
What I think is interesting also is that we're at this moment when things are changing, and we don't know where it's going to go, but I think that people are trying to do it. I know that at S2 in New York, they're doing a show called Now You See Me, and it's an exhibition of what they consider to be 9 of the most significant women artists of the 20th century. It's curated by Elizabeth Goldberg, who is the head of the American Art Department, and somebody I've known for almost 30 years. And when she came up with this idea, Elizabeth called me and she said, I want to collaborate with you on this because I don't know about Louise Bourgeois and Joan Mitchell the way you do. And I want to draw some serious relationships with Georgia O'Keeffe and Tamara de Lampica. We went through the list of things that they had, both museum loans and things for sale. I said, the problem with your show is that you have not a single living artist in it, and that you really need to have Linda Benglis, who is the continuation of this dialogue, so that our gallery's needs were met as well. We could consign some things from the primary market actually to their show, along with recommending a couple secondary market things that we knew about that had been on the market a long time that we wanted to keep out of public auction, that they can sell, get a commission. We can weigh in on the catalog. We obviously hold all the copyright access for the images. We could approve the essays, etc. They got a sponsor from Dior who is now going to dress Linda, who is going to show up at the event and take a group of museum curators and high net worth collectors through the exhibition. They're never going to represent Linda Benglis. But they were smart enough to come to the source first because they wanted to do this in a way that was going to have credibility. And we offer them that credibility. And I think that's an important way to try to do this.
You found it.
Yep,
there we go.
There you go. It took an hour and a half.
We can go for lunch now.
couldn't you have brought that up?
Anyway,
now lunch.
took you an hour and a half, but we finally got there.
Well, Lisa was talking a lot.
I just want to say, once again, a huge thank you to our panel who've really shared with us, and no blood, but given us a fantastic discussion and your questions as well. And thank you very, very much.
How do I take this thing off now?
You got to keep it on for lunch.
I think
Okay, so lunch break. And we see you 3:30 again, okay? And for Spanish and catalan. Okay. Y como sabéis, para los galeristas españoles y profesionales españoles y locales, hay unas sesiones paralelas en el aula 0 a partir de las 3, 2 sesiones. Los invitamos también ahí. Muchas gracias.